Hi there.
Oh, why is my earbud thingy not working? Let me try that again. Say something.
Hello, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
It's not using my it's not using my earbud. I don't know. It's just one of my things. Like if I'm doing audio, I like to have it like come in my ear and not just echo out because it's harder to hear. Let me see if I can figure out what I've done while we're waiting for people to come in here. Okay.
So we're waiting for Kenya.
Okay, I think this is.
That sounds like Kenya.
So we have a storm. Power's been going in and out. So just FYI, if I black out, but it's clear right now.
Oh, good. Yeah, I had that earlier. We're waiting for. Are we waiting for Alicia?
I
thought it was you.
think so.
Let me look at them. Joe Compton. I don't know if he's going to make it. He had a problem earlier today. So it may be just S3.
Oh, well, that'll be fine. I think I have made some mistakes in my posts on social media then because I had it in my head of who it was. And I think
I'm helping with the post though. I thought that was really good because I saw it and was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, I told the kids, I'm like, hey, I'm about to do a bubble bath. And then I like, who's mentioning me? Oh my God. So I like ran. About to be bubble bath just now, but it's not. So that's okay.
Well, I'm glad it was useful.
Thank you. Yeah. Super useful.
I'm having some weird sound issues. I wonder, is this my microphone? Do I sound louder? Or does it just sound the same? It's always
About the
going through my
same.
phone.
It's the same both ways.
And you know what? I have no idea what's going on. Throw in the earbuds over here. I'm just gonna do my best. I may have to ask what a few times. My hearing isn't always the very best. So anyway, I'm gonna give it another minute and then we'll go ahead and we'll get started as people filter in. And then we're gonna do all of our very best. There may be a cat making an appearance. There may be a dog making themselves known verbally. I think we all know what that's like after the last year and a half or so.
I don't know if we ever put books on there.
It's in brown.
Hmm. Thanks for that coffee, Carol, because I think I'm in need of some. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. There may be somebody else showing up, but actually, you're showing literally right now as I'm doing that.
Hi, sorry. It's been a crazy day. I apologize.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. Also, I'm sorry I left you off of like my tweet and stuff earlier because I don't know why I just didn't remember you were on the panel. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Anyway, so I just wanted to get started. So what I would like to do is just to have everyone introduce themselves very briefly. You know, a little bit about you, share your pronouns, you know, just kind of we're gonna let's a little bit of a soft pitch for the start. So Donna, if you'd like to get started.
I'm Donna J.W. Munro. She, her. I write spec fic and I have a novel out.
Excellent, excellent. Is it do I say it Kenya or or
I both. People always ask me to pick. I say either one. Kenya is perfect for me. As long as you don't say Kanika or something. People come up with weird stuff.
Yeah.
Kendra is a big all the time for some reason.
Huh.
Either way, my name's Kenya Wright. I write multicultural romance. I have about 65 novels out. Yeah, people get it wrong. I've been writing for about 11 years. I have books available on audiobook, Spotify, trying to things. I'm working on creating courses, but I don't know when that's going to happen. But I'm very happy with my full-time career and very, very blessed and happy to be here.
Wonderful. Joe, you are up next. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Joe Compton, and I am an independent author. I've published 2 books, working on a 6-book fantasy series, and a 3rd book to finish off the trilogy of the first 2 books, and actually re-releasing the first book because we wanted to tie it in together to make it all cohesive package, which I think goes along with this conversation pretty well. And I also run Go Indie Now, which is an online network that supports, highlights, and markets and helps indies of all art forms get out there and get seen. So that's me.
That's great. So I'm Beverly Bambury, she, her also, and I'm a publicist. I do marketing and publicity for authors in most of the genres. I started with horror, but I also have worked in mystery and crime and even one romance. Somebody took a chance on me, which was romantic. And I even have done a few picture books, which is awesome because it's so much fun, right? It's a little different from all the murder that I'm always into, murder and torture and I actually don't write, so that's kind of one of my perhaps unique things being here at this particular convention. But I love being a part of the publishing. I love helping people sell their books. So that's me. All right. So what I want to do is, first of all, if people in the audience could just say whether they're currently published or pre-published, that would be really cool because it might help me just tailor a few small details. And I actually, since StokerCon, the interface actually seems a little easier to use from my phone. So I can actually pop up this chat and see what people are saying. Well, Linda, we know you're published. So as that is coming in, I will just go ahead and start with my first question as well, because I don't want to just make everyone feel very pressured sitting here while I just stare at the chat like this. I'd like to start with some positives. I'd like to start with some of what's worked, and then we can talk about some of the more difficult things in a little bit. Donna, just quick confirmation. This is an hour, right? Or a little less than an hour?
A little less than an hour, yeah.
Cool. I just wanted to confirm. You never know. So anyways, so I'd really like to hear about what your most successful effort has been to date. And I'm going to talk later on about how the number of books you've had out affects it. So if you just want to hang on to that aspect of it, because we are going to cover that. So Kenya, you've got 8 million books. I mean, I think you said 65. I'd like to hear about what are the things that have been successful for you that might be useful to the folks who are listening to us today.
What I would say, and I wish I knew this, like, first 5 years would have been less rocky if I already knew this, and it was series to me. I think a series is one of the most important things. Trilogy, if you don't want to do a whole series, or even a duet could work too. But I think trilogies that's when money really started coming in for me. People, I think I wrote like maybe 20 to 30 just standalones, and people would go here. I kept focusing on writing a best-selling book. And I never looked at the whole entire picture. I just kept trying to write the it book. And when that wouldn't go well, I just tried another it book. And it wasn't focused. So I would say, for someone who's starting off new, if you think that your story can be into a series, to me, that's the most important thing you can do for your career. Write a complete series and just make sure it's good for you, and keep it going. It may not even make a lot of money that first year, but oh boy, in the years to come, that series that you wrote long ago is going to bring in megabucks. So that's my thought.
Awesome. So Joe, why don't you talk about something that's been really successful for you, something you can share with our audience and our panel?
Sure. I would say right now, every author out there, whether they're traditionally published or indie published, has to use social media in some aspect of what they do. So this is my favorite saying in the world, and that is, social media is what it is in its name, and that is to be social. To be authentic and be you, and to present you, and to interact. This is your opportunity to really engage with your own audience. You have a unique perspective that authors 25 years ago didn't have, which is that you have a direct connection with your readers. And so in order to, really capture that, you have to engage them like people. You can't just keep throwing your book ad at them and say, buy my book. Here's a new book. Guess what? I've got a book. It's more of how you can be authentic to them and how you connect with them. And that's how you get lifelong readers and fans.
I totally agree. And I'm gonna jump in here. I'm doing a bit of a delicate dance as the moderator, but also a subject matter expert here. So I talk about this a lot, and it's funny, Joe, because I have that almost very similar saying: social media is social.
Yeah.
Go figure, exactly. But here's the thing, and what's difficult, I think, for some people is that it doesn't come naturally, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to come naturally for everyone. There's a lot of resources out there. I am going to briefly, I guess, self-promote. I actually have created for my coaching group. I have a group of authors that I coach that do their own publicity, and I give them, different resources and talk to them. And anyway, so I'm I'm almost done with my 30-day calendar. Essentially, it's a calendar of prompts. So if you're one of those people where it doesn't come naturally, you can actually still look at, okay, so day 1, this is the sort of topic I should post about. And then day 2, this is the topic. And then you might only see promoting your work maybe 2 to 3 times a month. or something, So
Mhm.
anyway, the point is there are a lot of resources out there. If it doesn't come naturally, don't be afraid of social media. You can, with practice and with some resources, you can actually get some good stuff going out there.
Oop.
Donna, what about you? What's been successful for you?
I don't know yet. I am throwing the spaghetti on the wall. Something's gonna stick. I don't know. Kate Jones has done some nice things for my book. But part of my responsibility is to figure out how to keep pushing it. And I'm learning it's a trial by fire. I don't care how much money I spend. At this point, I'm just trying to figure out how to make it work for book 2, book 3. You know what I mean? So like it has been touch and go. I have built a really good newsletter list. So I have 6,000 people on my newsletter. I don't know if they actually want to be there or not. And my problem is it's a YA. So I'm those people are not kids. You know what I mean? So that's where my struggle is how do and I'm not going to Insta and I'm not going to TikTok.
I was going to tell you, it's TikTok. That's where they are. But
I know.
It's okay. And here's the thing. The other thing about social media, don't stress. Like if you can't get on TikTok and make awesome videos, don't stress over that. Okay. Because I think particularly with video content, if you're not kind of feeling more genuine, I think that comes through. And I think it can be maybe more of a hindrance even. So, and honestly, for one, a lot of the people who buy the books are the parents anyway. So, I think, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
I think that everybody here probably has a different social media that they like, and in the chat and amongst us even. And I think that the key is to stick with one or two that you're really, really engaged with, that you really feel like is you and can help you, and ride that wave. Never leave that wave. Keep that wave going, because I think the more you can learn about that particular social media, the more power you'll have ultimately when it comes to driving sales and marketing and gathering, like I said, lifelong fans. I mean, everybody, it's trendy to try book talk. It's trendy to do Instagram writers. It's trendy to do, Snapchat. And now there's Likewise and all these other things that are just piling on top of us after on top of us and after on top of us. And yeah, maybe you should have a presence in every one of them, but dabbling in those, it's okay. It's, if you're comfortable on Facebook, stay on Facebook. If you're comfortable on Twitter, stay on Twitter. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think everybody has a different way of driving sales, and everybody's successful on their own way. There's no magic wand. There's no magic bean. There's no special thing that we could all say that everybody can do and it would be perfectly suited to them. I mean, if you're introverted, it's tough to be on social media sometimes, because then you have to deal with, people, and, even for us extroverts, we don't always like to deal with people either. But, it's just one of those things that if you stay on it and learn it and you feel comfortable, it'll show.
And that consistency is key. I actually just have an idea for you, Donna. I'm just going to share it for you. You're going to get some free advice right now. Ready? Okay. Even if you don't want to do TikTok yourself, maybe download it, check it out, look at the book like tags, YA book tags, and maybe what you can do is ask some of the people who are talking about YA books on TikTok to review your book or feature your book. So even if you aren't on there, you can get your book on there.
Yeah. Oh, for the things, like I'm a big believer in outsourcing now. And so for me, if I have a fan who is on TikTok and does TikTok a lot, I will ask them nicely to promote me out. Like I have a person who has this big following on TikTok now, just because she just does reactions and she's funny and stuff. Y'all probably have seen her. She just this old black lady that just makes these crazy reactions to videos and stuff. And in the middle of her crazy reactions, she'll like post different people's books that she likes. So that's helpful. But one thing that I do that has worked well and kind of came weird, like, you know how Beyonce has a group, she has the Beehive, Justin Bieber has the Beliebers. Because I can be narcissistic at times, I was like, well, I want a name group. I want a group. So I came up with the K, and here, give me the shirt. So I came up with the K Killers, and I started basically I came up with like a reading group, and I would post it at the end of my books, like, if you want to be a part of the Hey K Killers, like, I just started calling my readers K Killers. First of all, I didn't ask them if they want. I was like, hey K Killers, how you doing? If you want to be or see inside or see excerpts or see what I'm doing or this is my face group, K Killers. And then in the group, they all have their own shirt now, so it's like a gun. So that's a K Killers, and I have a bunch of different colors. But anyway, it was started off being like 10 people, and it was just weird, really. In the beginning, I would just be like, hey, and I'm like, what am I gonna say? Hey, so hey, and they wanted to know all of that stuff. And then I started posing questions, and then I'd say, hey, what do y'all want me to write? Because I'm thinking I need to pay bills in 3 months. What do y'all want me to write? And people would come up with fun polls, and it just went crazy. So now I have I think it's 1,400 people in K Killers. We're always doing stuff. Other authors come to me to ask to post their books in there, and it's super, super active. And it's been it really started off as just me posting the Facebook group link at the back of the book, and people joining and being okay, not posting anything amazing, like, hey, I was really depressed today, so I didn't write. And they're like, oh, don't worry, keep writing. And I'm like, oh, that counts for a post? Because I feel like I'm having a mental breakdown, but that's okay. So I say try a bunch of crazy stuff, but make sure you want to do it and that you believe in doing it. And it's going to work if you believe.
Definitely. And and to speak to what Kenya said earlier, also, like, Donna, you've got the one book, right? So you're writing more. And as you write more and people see you have a complete series, I've noticed that even though when you're trying to publicize a series, like the second or the third book or whatever, you still are going to be selling a lot of the first, because people got to read the first before they read the others. So it really will start to build on itself. So that's kind of exciting. That's good advice. So
that's the whole.
I forgot. I was going to look in the chat here. They are sexy shirts. Carol's so fun. Sorry, I'm looking in the chat here. K Killers, TikTok, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So we are going to look at the Q&A tab a little bit closer to the end, by the way. So if you do have a question for any of the panelists, put it in the Q&A tab, because I don't think we're monitoring chat religiously here, but we will check out the Q&A tab. Okay, so
you did just get a question. El Marie asked, I have trouble sustaining conversations. Any ideas? And I think Beverly has a Facebook group that would.
Oh, are you in my Facebook group? That's exciting.
I am.
I know. Yeah, it's been, I actually talk about stuff like that. It's true. It's just called Book Publicity with Beverly. That sounds great. So, if you just look for that, but I love when people post questions like that, and I'll talk, and then other people share their experiences. I moderate it pretty heavily in the sense that I don't just let people post whatever. Like, sometimes people try to post just like, for my book, and I'm like, no, that's not what this group is for. We're here to talk and to learn together and to grow together. So I'd love if you would join us, and we can totally talk more about that. But that's actually where, if you look up, first of all, you can look up for what other authors are doing, authors who are writing in the same genre as you, see what they're doing, see what they're talking about. And again, there's writing prompts from me, from other people, stuff like that. The other thing to remember, and Joe can also, I'm sure, speak to this. He sounds like he's got similar interests to me, which is awesome. We're gonna have to get to know each other more later. But
Yeah.
The whole point of social media, selling on social media, is that you want people to come to know, and trust you. So it's kind of like, you might get one day where for trust, you might share, like Kenya shared about being depressed and that she hadn't written, right? So that's like a bit of vulnerability, and that's the sort of thing that can build some connection and build some trust. And you know, also just posting, you know, like, okay, I made this awesome homemade pizza today, check me out, I'm such a chef, you know, like, you know, it's very relatable. And while you don't want every post to be that, I mean, you want people to also see you as and creative and all these other things. You don't have to have like a big essay or perfect thing every time, right? It's it's a whole lot of sometimes even silly things, but that's the people that you're gonna get through social media may not be large in number, but there's this intimacy, and they're the people who might go out and cheerlead for you later, right? They might be in your cake for K killers later. I was like, hey crew, no, that sounds bad. So anyways.
But that's what you said is 100% true. I think when we onto the author's sites or author's social media at all, they really want to just know some things about you. A lot of fantasy authors in here play like D&D, like Dungeons and Dragons. Like that would be insane if you talked about that and you write fantasy, of course, to talk about it. To talk about when you've done stuff like that or gone to a convention or your favorite fantasy show. Like stuff like I talk about my favorite romance movies because I know my readers are probably looking at those same romance movies that I like. And talking about your movies is even.
Oh, definitely. Like movies, TV shows, books you're reading, like it's all fair game. And again, if you're planning ahead, and it's totally cool to plan ahead, there are tools where you can schedule things ahead of time as well. Although this isn't a social media panel, so I feel like I could talk about that for an hour. So I don't want to get in depth, but there's tools like Buffer and Hootsuite and blah blah blah. Later, there's tons of them. Anyway, so when you're planning out your stuff, you don't have to think necessarily every day. You can take an hour a week and just plan a few posts, right? So, anyways, I forgot where I was going with that. I had a point, but I'll have to jump in with it later. So,
Do you guys know Shelley Bates?
Yes, I do.
Shelley works with our program, and she's got a bunch of series like romance. She's got steampunk, YA. She's got a bunch of different things going on. But her claim to fame on social media is that she's a chicken wrangler. She rescues chickens. And so there's all these pictures of her with chickens sitting in her lap like little kittens, right? People love to go there for that. And then she drags them over into her books. I mean, like, it's crazy. But she's got chickens on her shoulder and
Yep. No, you know what? But that's just it. It's that slice of life that you're sharing. It's the fun things. I have 2 very tiny dogs. I'm not exaggerating. They're like this big, and they're currently hiding in the bedroom with my husband though, because the voices coming on the phone are freaking them out. So I cannot show you. But if you go on my social media, you'll definitely see very tiny dogs. In fact, I think my last Instagram post before today about the panel was my dog. Like it was this weirdly like almost boudoir kind of photo, and I just titled it "Zoe's gonna steal your man" or something like that. You know, so the point is it's just fun, silly stuff, and it's a little insight into me, just because I like to be funny. I like to try to, and I dote on my dogs, right? Like, so these are things that I'm revealing about myself and making these connections. But anyway, so let me just check really quick back into chat and questions before we move. Also, yes, readers do love dogs. And
I think you're right though about social media being super important though, because it's a free guys and connect, and it does make money. Even though long ago I never could attach or understand how my tweet or my post would make money, but it does. It's hard to explain how it does. So just have a social media presence is all I would say.
Definitely. And it's an aggregate thing, you know, like again, like we were saying with your first book, you might not do super well. People are still got to get to know you. But with the second, it might improve. With your 60th, it's going to be even better, right? So it's kind of similar with social media. It's this aggregate thing. Every time you make a new bud on social media, like that's one more person who's in your corner. And these connections that you make with people, even if you only have 50 followers, but they're engaged and they like you, like that's like so valuable. And nurturing those people who are already connected with you, no matter how small the number, is a really important part of using social, right? So being able to talk to people about their day, like another thing you can do is go through and the people you follow and just reply to them. Reply, say, oh yeah, your garden looks lovely, or your shirt is nice, or whatever they're talking about, so that's also like
Yeah. And it builds a community, because like if you think of brands that sell well, they have a community. Legos, it's a major community. You have adults doing Legos, you have adults doing Lego meetups and Lego game shows and all that. I don't understand how to explain it, but like somehow Legos has created a community. So having a Facebook group that's not even about your books, but about fantasy books that you like or sci-fi books that you like, and building a group where you just talk about sci-fi books, or coming together with other authors, you 3 or 4 authors that come together and do that, is going to help you in the long run, so that when you do publish your book, you can post that book and you have like 1,000 or so people who will, whether they read your book or not, they will go ahead and support and share and promote your book. And your book is getting seen by so many more people than if you hadn't created it.
Somebody called that your street team.
Yeah, if you can get to that point, that's awesome. And maybe that's going to start out with one person who is your mom, and that's okay. Because it's got to start somewhere. Marie asked also, again in the chat, I saw just about keeping everything separate. That may have been the case at one time, but it really is more about a unified thing now. It's more about being a real person, like you said, originally being a little bit more of your authentic self. Because here's the thing, you think about when you are watching TV or watching YouTube or whatever, when the commercials come on, you kind of tune out. Most of us really kind of tune out, and that's kind of it when it comes to this sort of thing. If you post your ad only once in a while, people aren't tuning you out, they're just going to see it. But if everything you post is always about writing or about your book, or only about this one thing hardcore, like people will start to zone out about it, right? And this is our human nature. It's just the way our brains are wired. It's not that you've been doing anything wrong. So yeah, I certainly do advocate for a little bit more integration. And of course, I mean, Facebook pages are so hit or miss anyway. I don't even really encourage people to spend much time on them anymore. Facebook groups are a little bit more useful, but it maybe you've got to kind of grow and get more stuff published before that's really worth your time. Anyway, again, this is a whole.
That's the reason why integration is so important, though, is because Facebook changes their algorithms like we change our clothes, and they're hip to the idea of you creating separate pages and things like that, and it doesn't carry your followings over if you're changing things up and doing groups and things like that. There's certain things you can take advantage of with the algorithms by having a group and then yourself, but being yourself in the group as opposed to being your author self and yourself, having separate pages, because the more you spread Facebook out, the less they're going to be inclined to want to promote you and help you get seen by your people. And most people use online, they don't use group pages or go to other pages. Frequently they use their own timeline, and that's where you want to be seen the most by them. So you have to be yourself on those timelines, but you have to be a friend. You can't be a followed, and you can do those things, but you're spreading your audience out thin if you do that.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk a little bit now about the bad stuff. What have you done? Sorry, so dramatic. I didn't mean to be quite that dramatic. What have you done and put a lot of effort into that just seemed to be utterly useless? And the reason we're going to talk about this is twofold. First of all, we can commiserate a little. Let's face it. Sometimes you just want to cry on someone's shoulder, and I'm here for that. But the other thing is, of course, the folks who are listening to us right now and spending all this time with us to maybe think about some things to avoid. Like, for example, when we were just talking, Marie. Yes, Marie. When we were just talking about Marie. Sorry, I'm terrible with names. You know, how she had heard, you know, about always keeping things separate. You know, you might have heard something that was really good to do, but maybe it actually really didn't work for you, or maybe it's something that was good advice 10 years ago and it isn't really good advice anymore. So I would definitely like to hear about some things that maybe aren't so good. So let's do a little bit of venting about that. Now, Donna, you're really working on your first book still, right? As far as like the promotion aspects of
Yeah.
it. So, why don't you tell us what you would suggest as a what not to do?
I have a list. Okay.
Oh no!
Facebook boost, nothing. That was a bunch of BS. Trying to land a BookBub feature. I keep getting turned down on that. But an ad, I didn't see much from that. I have been doing these lists where you get people who sign up to be in your newsletter and they could win something, which has gotten me a lot of people. I get a bump every once in a while when I send out my newsletter, so that's a good thing. Book Cave, not so much. Goodreads, I ran a giveaway on Goodreads. They used to be free. They are not free anymore. I did see a bump on that, but not much. And I also got a terrible review, which was not happy. That jerk. It was going to happen, right? Let's see. I've done the Fussy Librarian. I've done Author XP. Oh my gosh. I just have done all the things. And honestly, it just seems like I'm just throwing money at things, you know?
Yeah, I actually don't encourage folks who are promoting their first book to actually spend a lot of money. I actually encourage them to write the next book, because while you certainly don't want to not promote your book, I mean, obviously that would not be good either. You know, it's just so hard. It's so hard, and the more people are out there doing it, the harder it gets. So it's rough. And honestly, Donna, I applaud your energy and your drive. Like you just keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna get there.
Throw shit at the wall. That's what I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah. Spaghetti does stick.
Yeah.
Eventually.
So Joe, what about you? What is something that just really flopped that you would suggest maybe people avoid?
Okay, two things I have. The first being forget about your friends and family. That's a bump. That's a bump that is not going to help you in the long run. They may say that they're going to help you and do all that stuff, but it's a small little thing that's going to. I would say go after readers more than go after your friends and family. Build a community, build a base for yourself around people you don't know rather than people you do know. I mean, you can use them as foundation and help, and they can, certainly help you, but they are just there to, you need them to be your rah-rah. You don't need them to be your leader, And then the other thing I would say is that little number that we all stare at when we first publish, that little ranking number, is the most arbitrary number in the history of numbers ever created. That number is a terrible, terrible, terrible lie, and it will lead you down a road of despair and discouragement and anger and frustration. Ignore it. It has nothing to do with success.
I'm going to interrupt you briefly because we do have some authors that are not yet published that are in our audience. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that for those folks?
For the number thing? Yeah. So Amazon ranks books, and they rank them based upon what they have, which is a predictive algorithm. So basically, if you sell 2 books in one day, the algorithm is going to bump you up to a superhero status in your ranking, because they figure if you're selling 2 books today, you'll sell 3 tomorrow, 4 the next day. They always project for the good in that, and then they take you apart when you don't sell that. So it fluctuates up and down all the time. And it's not that you're selling a lot of books. It's the most misleading number. It's that you're selling a book consistently a day, and that's what the number bases itself on. It's predictive. So it doesn't actually equate to more sales. The only way that it would do that is if you get on that first page. Sales are super important, and promoting right away and getting arcs in there and getting reviews in there. Amazon works like any other media, and that is the more you are interactive with it, the more they're going to help you get seen. So they like it when other traffic to other things and other people and other ideas. That's because they're not about you, they're about Amazon. So that's what that number tries to get it to do. So it's kind of like this, hey, look, I'm number 100 out of 1 million right now, and then tomorrow I'll be 1 million, I'll be 997,000, because nobody pays attention to that number unless you're at the top of it. So I've never met a person who bought a book based on me being 134th out of 5 million. I've never met that person. If you're out there, say hi to me, but I've never met that person.
Yeah, no, that all makes a lot of sense. So thank you for going into that. Sometimes I forget that, just because we kind of know exactly what somebody's talking about, maybe some of the newer folks don't always actually know. I appreciate that. Kenya, what about you? What is something that and you've probably got some of the largest amount of experience right now. Oh, we lost Joe briefly. Hopefully he'll come back. So I'd love to hear kind of what you think might be worth avoiding, or just even an awesome story about a disaster. I mean, whatever.
I, for some reason, maybe because I'm into, like most of us want a book as a movie or whatever, I used to spend a large amount of time on videos, the trailers. Like I thought I would say visual is the next best thing and we need to get on that. And I would do these huge, spend all this money buying, money I didn't have, buying like stock video and stock music and creating this major video that I just thought was spending a week or two on this freaking trailer, just it, and like nobody almost would ever like look at the trailer. It just nothing got any friction from it. Not spending enough time on thinking about the book cover. Like to me, the book cover is the most important thing. It's the number one way to get someone to buy your book. Not spending enough time on thinking about my book cover, not researching what is selling in that area for the book covers, like whatever market I'm trying to do. So research before I started publishing is probably my biggest mistake. I think everything else from blogging to ads to I think all of that works to me. So optimistic person. But I do think video trailers aren't as impactful. Just never click for me.
That's actually been my experience too. I don't think I've ever had a client that had any sort of big hit from a trailer. And some of the trailers looked amazing. Like they put money into it. They hired people who are professionals. But I think a book trailer selling the book I think it's pretty rare. So if it's not something you can do easily and quickly, like maybe not worth spending the time. Your experience reflects mine. So this is a question we're going to do maybe like this, and then I'm going to also see if there's any more questions in the audience after this one. But if you can answer this, and I know Kenya certainly can, what has changed between earlier when you only had maybe a few books out, and what is it and now? Like, I know we all hear about the conventional wisdom that the more you publish, the more you sell. And I think that generally that's true. But I'd like to hear about how has the experience changed for you? Like Donna, is this your first book ever that is out with Omnium?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I've sold an awful lot of short stories, but that's a totally different
Okay,
thing.
so this might only be a question for Kenya then.
Donna can answer these questions. Donna playing around with us right now. I'm gonna let her do that. You are out. I think Donna, you are out there. Everyone knows you. I'm very impressed with you. We're gonna have a conversation sometime next week, me and you right now, because I'm impressed by you. So anyway, we're gonna have a boss talk, boss conversation next week. But so you said, what do I think changed? You know what? When I first started, I really traditional publishing. Everybody looked at indie publishing like it was disgusting. When anytime I put out a book, I said, "Oh, I'm self-published," and it was just like, ugh, like vomit in their mouth. You almost hid that you did indie. So I was really, I was really insecure about being an indie publisher for years, as I continue to try my best to get traditional public, push through those ivory gates. But I think that's what the biggest thing has changed, is that the indie revolution is like, we're in the middle or maybe toward the end, I guess, in the sense of so many people, the way people look at indie publishing is so different from 10 years ago. And a lot of authors who I knew that had awards, that were published with all these big different companies, who were like, Kenya, you need to go to agent, blah, blah, blah. 5-6 years later, they're now coming to me asking me how to publish their books, so they've got rights back on, publish your new stuff. But you just make more freaking money that way. So I think what's changed, what I saw change, is how indie publishing looks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a publicist, I do still have to work harder on my self-published clients. I still do have fewer options for places to get reviews and stuff like that, but it's not as bad as it was. There's definitely more places that are open to it. And the cool thing is, some places might do an indie person or a self-published person if they've already read one of their books before and they liked it. So that's where having more books is, again, a useful thing. So we've lost Joe, and hopefully he'll be able to return. That's what was happening to me during StokerCon. I kept disappearing from the panel. It was horrible. It made me so sad. Anyway, sorry. But so I looked at the questions, and I see that Susan has asked how to handle social media burnout. I've struggled with it for the last couple of years, and any suggestions would be welcome. So there's a couple of ways I would answer that. I'm just going to jump in. First of all, pick one or two things and just stick with it. You don't have to do everything. You really, really, really don't. Like right now, I've pulled back quite a bit from Twitter. I'm still on it. Like, I at least check messages, see what's trending, whatever. But like, I have been finding it exhausting. Like, people are just getting more and more angry and rude. And I'm like, I'm a resilient person and I'm finding it exhausting. I can't imagine how all these other people who maybe aren't as social as me are feeling. Like, oh, it's rough. So and so that's the other part of it, is you can step back a little. Like, you know what? If you need to take a break for a few days, just post and say, hey, I'm working on a book, or whatever you want to say. It doesn't even matter if it's true. Just say something that looks good. And and say, I'll be back next week, or take a short break if you want to. But the key for me is just pick what you like, what you vibe with the most, and maybe just focus on that. You don't have to do it all. I think it's complete falsehood to say you have to do it all. I mean, if you want to and you can, awesome. You can also, to speak to Kenya's outsourcing point earlier, if you have the financial resources to do it, you can also potentially hire someone to do it, or you can pre-schedule things. Like, you can schedule as far in advance as you want, as long as you're willing to log in daily and look for replies and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot you can do. Again, that's something we can go on about. I hope that answers your question a little bit, at least from my perspective. Would either of you, Donna or Kenya, I like how I'm pointing at my screen, like you can see that. Would either of you like to jump in on this burnout question?
I have my daughter do a lot of things for like Instagram because she loves it. So she wanted to be supportive, and I was like, you do this because you like it. And so she likes to format my newsletter and be a part of things, but I just write it. And so that's how I try to avoid the burnout. I haven't found a way to make Twitter work for me at all. So I can't get really burnt out on it because I don't know, just sort of sampling around trying to figure out which thing I want to do still. So I try to do a little bit of it every week, but you know.
So yeah, the social media burnout, yeah, that's been my life this whole year. There's a few times I'm actually in between thinking I may like completely disappear altogether, and just next year though, like no one sees me, and then I think, oh, I don't know. But I'm very much in the zone right now. And I think it's just because of the tension in the environment that's happened all in 2020, and just everybody is so much angrier. I have been accused of race by other Black women in my books because they didn't feel like they had enough Black people in the book. And I'm like, you do know who you're reading it into. So everybody is not going to be Black. Some people have been like, hey, they're not Black enough, or they're light, or they're dark, or they're this. And I'm just like, and I'm like, that stressed me out. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's just very tense right now, you know. I've also feel like I've made myself too available sometimes to the world, and that's been a problem. I've completely allowed everyone into my life. So it's just crazy. I've had stalkers in the past 2 or 3 years. I've had some weird situations with that. I've had my Instagram account like copied, and then like, so I've had them use my pictures of my kids on my Instagram as their fake Instagram. So it's like, again, when people are saying separate, yeah, maybe separate you. Because seeing my kids on like a Thanksgiving picture this past Thanksgiving on like a hacked-in account was like, oh, that's my babies, you know? So I do have an author assistant, and you would think she's super expensive, $100 for the month. And she does a lot of that little extra stuff. There are a lot of people, author assistants. You go to author assistant. If you're interested in author assistant, go, I can find a group. It's like authors assistant on Facebook, and they will connect you. But there, a lot of them are cheap. Also, like Beverly has promotion, like how you have a promotion site, going to the promotion people who know what they're doing and know how to do it, so you can write. That's helpful. And promotion people like Beverly have the connections and have the people to do stuff. So it's like, that just kind of like relaxes you, you know. What else? The new book is always going to beat anything that you can do. A new book is going to be, it's going to be your tweet. It's going to be everything. New book. And newsletter swaps has been more helpful for me because is ass. I'm sorry, I'm cursing, but it is garbage. I don't know if people are it's really bad, but I swap with other authors and I befriend other authors, and so yeah, that deal with social media burnout.
Great. No, that's a good question. Honestly, it's a timely question too, because I mean, like, again, I'm super extroverted and I love talking to people, but I just turn on Twitter sometimes and I'm like, I just can't. Like, I mean, you know, it's a real thing. And Twitter's probably the worst for that. I kind of feel like that the Twitter algorithm really, I think more than any place else, rewards conflict. I honestly believe that. I have no evidence, but I honestly believe that. So, because I'm not as exhausted by Facebook because it's much more curated. Like, randos can't come and talk to me on Facebook in the same way, right? Which, hey, sometimes I love me a rando, but sometimes if I want to talk about what's going on in my life or why, you know, this, like, I want it to be a little bit more closed, right? So anyway, now we've only got a couple minutes left, so let me just look real quick at our chat.
I was going to answer Sally's question, if that's about the newsletter.
Go for it.
How do you get followers? Again, my newsletter is crap, so Beverly's going to have a little bit more better information on this, but I do go into connecting with other authors that write genre, not in fantasy horror, whatever. You don't write whatever you write. I mean, if they don't write what you write, then it's good, but you need to connect with the people who write exactly in your, like, would have the same amount of fans, right? Or same in that sort of group. Connecting with them and doing newsletter swaps is the best thing for building a newsletter for me. Because you're getting, if people read, and then would probably read you if your books are similar and you do a swap. So I'm usually in Facebook groups that just deal with authors in that genre. And a lot of those groups that are keen on, like I know romance ones, I wouldn't know like horror fantasy ones, but I know they're sci-fi and fantasy ones. So if y'all ever see Alicia Wright, ask her about that for sci-fi and fantasy. But that's a great way to build your newsletter group because you're going to get fans and people who really want to get those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as far as growing a newsletter, I think Donna may have briefly disappeared. I'm not totally sure yet. I want her to talk a little bit because she has grown her newsletter pretty well. But you can definitely doing the swaps, networking with other similar authors, all the things Kenya said. Also, I think giveaways can be fun, but it can't just be your book if you're a new author because no one cares yet about your book. I hate to say that, but again, real talk. Like if you're just getting started, people don't know and love you and trust you yet and all that stuff. So like I have one client who wrote like a kind of a steampunky sort of book. And so she had a tea for two giveaway. So she had her book, but she also had, this adorable little tea set. And that got a lot of people's attention because every steampunk book, people are drinking tea. It's just like it's a fact that of steampunk. For some reason, it seems to involve a lot of tea. So that was a great one, And then I know somebody who does horror was looking at getting like little resin skull keychains made, like just kind of something that's fun that resonates with your genre. And it's going to depend on you and who you are. And like I know, I wanted to briefly say because I noticed that John Myers just said that being careful about some of these types of programs or giveaways and stuff if you're in a really niche genre or maybe something a little transgressive, like you can end up with a lot of negative reviews or just not a lot of attention. So all of this has to kind of be taken in context of what you write. So I know that's hard because it means there's not a hard and fast rule to follow, but it's something that definitely talk about offline or off the panel a little bit as well. So Donna, how did you grow your list? Why is it so amazing?
Okay, I have a friend named Lee Murray who's like a fantastic woman. Okay, love. You should know her. Just support everybody. Anyway, she introduced me to this guy, Russell. I put his name in the chat, Russell Norrie. Anyway, he sells his own books, but what he does is every once in a while he'll invite people to like a list builder. And it's not very expensive. I mean, you pay like, say, $25 to be in the list builder. And then if you want to try to get people on your BookBub account, you can add that. You can add like Twitter. You can add things that you're trying to build up to get some readers to follow you. You add those things in, and then they run this list builder. You have to promote it. You have to do a couple things, like everybody shares it on their newsletter, everybody shares it on Twitter. You prove that you've done it, and then your list goes up, and he sends you at the end these nice big lists, and you send out a welcome newsletter, offer them something free, like a short story. Some of them will drop off because they're just there to win the prizes, but you retain 75% of them. They're interested in the genre that you are in on, so it's really worth it. I'm not going to do it all the time, but I have 500 BookBub followers, which opens up a door in BookBub. It doubled my Twitter, so that was kind of a big deal. And I've got about 5,000 people who follow my newsletter. I don't know if they read it, but they follow it.
That's great. So unfortunately, we are only 4 minutes before the hour, so we actually have to stop. So I just want to thank everybody. And Joe, I know you're out there potentially listening. Thank you so much for everything. Kenya, thank you. Donna, thank you. I feel like we could have talked an entire other hour about this stuff, honestly. It's such a big topic, but I appreciate everybody. And thanks to our audience. I'm sorry we couldn't get to every single thing, but we're going to be around in the chat, and stuff and checking back in. So ask away. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for having me come on. That was great.
Yay.
Very good panel.
Yeah, I guess I just click leave now. That
Yeah.
works.
Thanks for doing this, Beverly. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Happy to do it. Take care.
See you later.